hopefully that will have given you some idea of what it's like, and you're all more than welcome to come and visit the centre in London, those of you who haven't been. Good, the technology work. We have got a new chief executive here, Fred. His name is Roly Keating, not to be confused with Ronan Keating, who is in a boy band, I think. But he's joining us very shortly, so we're going to have to change that. But anyway, there was a lot of support from both the previous government and this current coalition government in the UK to roll out the model into the regions, help rebalance the economy, just help people to transform city libraries into hubs for entrepreneurship. And so we were asked to go away and develop a plan, and so we really looked at what were the fundamental, I'm going to skip over these, this is really trends in the UK, and I'm sure many of which will apply. Well, actually, maybe I will just very briefly say, now more than ever, entrepreneurship is really important. They are the engine of the economy, and government, everybody knows that unless, at times like these, large corporates stop hiring people, they shed people, the only people who are going to create jobs and create wealth are the small companies. And there's some 4 million of them in this country, of which 99% are small businesses. 10% of people are planning to start a business, and but that's less likely to be women and disadvantaged groups. And most of them are going to have a really high chance of failure. So, and there's virtually no face-to-face support left. It's all fallen off a cliff. And this is just a summary of what it's like out there in the marketplace at the moment. The current government has switched all support virtually for startups online and put all the money into supporting growth companies. And so the orange bits there are really the bits that the library's in, which is the face-to-face support at the startup end, supported by the IPO underpinning us. And then we've got Business and IP Centre Innovating for Growth Service, which is another service we've just launched. We managed to gain £750,000 of ERDF, European Regional Development Fund, to start up and develop that service. And it's for a small number of people over 3 years, 150 business owners, to grow and get to the next stage. So this is our model. Its fundamental building blocks as our business and IP, information and expertise in one place to support the whole innovation cycle that I showed you earlier. And the really important things that surround that are having dedicated space and facilities, because entrepreneurs want to be together, want to network, want to feel they're with other like-minded people. Partnership program, really important. If you can't do it, get somebody who can. And you'd be surprised how many people will be willing to work with you on a pro bono basis as well. And then marketing, really important. You have to let people know that the information, that this centre is there. And it doesn't have to be expensive, because you can use social media, for instance, Twitter, Facebook and so on. That's all worked very well for us. Also, lest I forget, track everything you do. So we came up with, we looked at which libraries fulfilled these principles, and these had, firstly, part of the Patent Library Network, and also had great business collections. And we came up with 7 libraries, actually, and they all are you can see the targets: Birmingham, Glasgow, Leeds, Manchester, Sheffield, Liverpool, Newcastle. And so we then went on to write our plan for a blueprint. What we want to do is work with 6 patent libraries to roll out our model. And each library is going to be different, and each of those regions is going to be different, so we can adapt it to every single library. And the idea is to give direct advice and guidance to at least 23,000 people and help to create over 2,000 new jobs. And we applied for Regional Growth Fund, which only applied for England, for 5 million match funding. So that's 2.5 million from government, 2.5 million from the private sector. And we had our private sector partners teed up. And unfortunately, we didn't win the funding because we couldn't guarantee direct jobs. We were only enablers to jobs. So then the IPO, White Knight, came riding in. And after much discussion, we wrote a proposal, and and agreed a memorandum of understanding where as Guy has already mentioned, the IPO have granted us £100,000 to get of seed funding to get this project off the ground. And the idea is we have a regional project manager. We're in the middle of hiring one at the moment. We conduct local feasibility studies. We develop operational guidelines. We've learned from 7 years what works and what doesn't, but we can tailor them to each region. That we carry out training as a commons. We share our know-how, particularly on the funding side, and we end up with a blueprint. And it needn't just apply to these 6 libraries. It could be used in other libraries across the UK or indeed across Europe or the world. And I'm pleased to say that before we did that, we signed an agreement with Newcastle City Library, and we've got Angela Forster, who heads up the business development. Well, she's the business development manager there, and her colleague Luke today in the audience. And we signed an MOU. It was announced by Mark Prisk. We conducted a feasibility study there, and to see whether or not a centre would work like ours, very similar to ours, in Newcastle City Library, and it was overwhelmingly positive. I mean, these are just a few selected quotes, but if this offer had come up when I searched on the net, I'd have looked no further. I think this is a fantastic thing for Newcastle. So, building upon all that momentum, Newcastle have already launched a pilot. So on the left, you see Tony Durkin, who heads up culture and libraries in Newcastle. We've got Claire, and then a quite famous entrepreneur called Solveig Biddle, and then Newcastle Science City, because we signed the MOU originally with Newcastle Science City, with Nesta, and also with Northumbria University. So Nesta have dropped out, that's a long story, and Newcastle Science City have stepped in. And I should have stayed on that slide for a minute, but anyway, our current priorities: securing the long-term sustainability of the centre. We've conducted a resource study, which means that a third party has gone out and asked a lot of corporates what they think about our particular proposition and whether or not they'd support us, and we're going to hear the results of that very shortly. We've also got one major funder in the pipeline. We're rewriting our strategy and our plan. We're going to introduce some nominal charges for our workshops to try and close the funding gap that we have. And 2 reasons for that is that it increases the perceived value of our workshops and also reduces dropout rates, which are currently at around about 25%. I mentioned we've got ERDF funding to support growth companies, and we got £750,000 to do that over 3 years. And we're going to roll out, we hope, our model across the UK. And I'm absolutely delighted to say Newcastle have they've gone absolutely almost overtaken us in, I would say, in their events program. They've got a fantastic events program going. They've got an inventor in residence. They've managed to, well, they've put in a proposal for ERDF, European Regional Development Funding, and they've just learnt yesterday that the proposal has been accepted. So now they can write the full plan, and fingers crossed, they will get funding. But Angela and Luke are in the audience if you want to ask them about that. We also, tomorrow, are going, Claire and I, on a hard hat tour to visit Manchester City Library, which is in the middle of being rebuilt. And then there's also a new programme called Business Coaching for Growth, which we probably will be supporting. So now, with 5 seconds to spare, I will go through lessons learned. The first one is have a clear and compelling vision. Know absolutely where you want to get to, because you have to fire up people, whether it's public or private funding, whether it's ERDF, whether it's Barclays Bank, whoever. You have to have a very clear and compelling vision. You need to understand your core strengths and what makes you different from absolutely everybody else, and that only you can deliver. You need to really understand your market. I cannot stress enough how important it is to keep in touch with your potential customers, your potential customers, and track everything they do. Be innovative. Keep on coming up with fantastic new ideas. We've a couple of years ago, Claire came up with the idea of speed mentoring, where you get 6 mentors in a room and everybody goes around tables. Now, lots of people have copied us, so we need to move on to the next thing. But the more you share ideas with people, the more ideas come up. You've got to be really passionate about what you do, and surround yourself with a great team. Easier said than done, so it's not easy to hire at the moment, but anyway. You've got to write a really robust business plan, and that will become then the basis for proposals or bids. Make sure you've got support of key influencers and so on. I mean, we've had Lord Sugar, as you can, in the library, saying how wonderful we are, the late Dame Anita Roddick. We've surrounded ourselves with people who support us. Collaboration and partnerships, I think I mentioned before. If you can't do it yourself, get somebody else to do it. Hopefully get them to do it free. And really measure and report on absolutely everything that you do. Prove that you have delivered on your contract or your bid or what you said you were going to do, and some, if possible. And all I can say is, if at first you don't succeed, just try and try and try again, because although I may have made it sound easy, it was a roller coaster ride, and we'd go down very often one avenue and that wouldn't work, so then we'd have to adapt what we were proposing, and then finally we'd get the funding. So that's it from me. Thank you very much indeed for listening, for your attention, and I'll take some questions later.